There you go. So again, thank you so much for connecting today.
Yes.
And we'll go ahead and just kind of start off by kind of easing into the questions. How's
Of-
your day so far? I know it's kind of last minute to setting up the Zoom, but
That's okay. My day is going fairly well. It's just very hot out here in Houston, so
mm,
definitely staying indoors today. How are you?
I'm doing great, great. Thank you for asking. Likewise, as myself, been pretty much dealing with phone interviews,
Yes.
sending out emails. Been pretty busy Monday for me, but for the
Yeah.
most part, like you say, staying indoors, trying to avoid the heat.
Yes, definitely.
That's good. And then another thing we always kind of like when we start off with these Zoom interviews is just kind of course, make you feel at ease, make you
Of
feel,
course.
when you answer the questions, of course, to the best of your ability. And then also, we're gonna ask you certain questions, gonna make you think a little bit more, kind of
Of
thinking
course.
outside the box.
Of
So again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Perfect.
Great, great. So we'll go ahead and just kind of dive in
Yes.
to see in regards to looking in particular position that we're looking for. We're
Yeah.
trying to find a candidate, of course, sooner rather than later. Um, Starting off is what would you say is something that excites you about this role or something that you look forward for this position?
Of course. So I think that something that excites me about this position is the ability to work more with people. I don't know if you remember whenever we were on the phone, but um, I had kind of made a transition a little bit out of customer service, and I explored something in a healthcare setting. And
Hmm.
although I definitely enjoyed my experience there, and it definitely taught me a lot that I think I can use outside of it, it was very different not being able to speak with people face to face or through the phone. It could tend to be a little lonely. So for me, I've realized over the course of the years that I am a people person. I love
Hmm.
people and I love feeling needed, especially when there's something that I can provide to someone else. So that's definitely what excites me about this position.
Okay, and then that's good. When
Yes.
when when you say in regards to being a people person,
Of course.
would you say it's kind of more of offering that assistance, being able to connect with them, build that rapport?
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's a part of it for me. Being a people person is definitely enjoying who people are and as they show themselves to me. I think that feeling that providing a service is very important, but
Mhm.
I think overall working with people, you are providing a service, but it's kind of like you're the first face they see or hear whenever they're calling into the company. So making sure that I can build a connection, an immediate connection with people, I think that that's something that over the years I feel like I've definitely improved on, and it's something that I think I refer to whenever I speak about being a people person.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
Being able to kind of do that, like you said, whether it's in person, whether it's over the phone,
definitely.
um, make that connection.
Yes.
And for the most part, it's kind of like that first kind of initial call or first kind of in point of contact. That's kind of
Yes.
what we have to kind of establish that. So that's great.
Yes.
Um, and then when you mentioned earlier in regards to kind of being in the medical field or
Yes.
doing that type of work, um, what would you say was kind of different about it?
I think if I could say that there's something that's different about it, it's that at least in the position of healthcare that I had, I was kind of an invisible third party.
Mhm.
I would look at people's charts. So, for example, if you go to the doctor, whenever your provider comes through the door, they have your record already. They know this is what they've been here for in the past, all that information. But in order to have the most accurate information, there's a third person that maybe you don't see that's going through all of your documents and through all of your information and making sure that everything is up to date because information not being up to date in healthcare can be a life or death situation. So
Mhm.
it's a heavy responsibility to that I found myself in, and I think that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about it. But it was very different that now I was providing a service that maybe many people don't think about, and it was still a very rewarding experience. So I think whenever people can feel the reward or feel happy about the work they do, even if someone else doesn't notice it, I think that that was was very different, at least in the position from what I've had in the past.
Okay, and it does make sense in regards to, like I said, the type of industry we work in is
Yes,
it's an important role, I guess,
definitely.
in on our end. But when it comes to the healthcare, of course, like you said,
Yes,
any information that's missed, of course, can be very
definitely.
critical.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
so that's something like you said that it kind of shows one having the high sense of attention to detail,
Yes,
but at the same time, you can also say it can kind of go into values that you
yes,
have, which
definitely.
kind of leads into one of our questions that we asked when we sent the application. What would you say would be your three core values that you live by, and why
Yes.
would they be important to you? We got your answers. Can you just elaborate a little bit on those?
Yeah, so I think for me, my three core values that I did write in my application was accountability, flexibility, and self-respect. I think that that last one, the self-respect, is very important for me because I carry the mindset that if you can't love someone else, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love someone else? And I think that that is something that you can put towards respect. How can I not respect myself, but then think that I can respect other people? And
Yeah.
the way that I practice that respect is by advocating for myself, making sure that there's nothing that I don't say or don't ask or don't explore. It's definitely something that I think that respecting myself in work, outside of work, will definitely lead me to have a more productive and more happy lifestyle. I think that's something that if I could tell you to respect yourself, if I can tell anyone else, if I could tell myself at like 3 years old, it's that making sure
Mhm.
that you prioritize yourself and the things that will make you be able to give that to other people. Whatever can be applied to me can be applied to other people. I think with accountability, I think that it kind of transitions into the self-respect. Accountability is sitting with yourself and saying, I know that there's things I don't know and there's things that I know, but it doesn't matter what I know. How can I improve what I don't know? Accountability is making sure that I'm never comparing myself and thinking that I'm better than anyone else. Accountability is showing up and making sure that I'm being the best version of myself possible. And I think that's very important. And accountability is very needed anywhere outside of work, in work, especially whenever you're working with other people. Finally, I did mention flexibility. I tend to think that I'm a very flexible person. I do like having a work life balance. And that definitely comes from knowing what expectations, what my hours will look like, what previous engagements I may have, and definitely working around that. Flexibility is very important because right now, if I were to be hired, it may be an 8 to 5, 8 to 6. But what if hours change? What if days change? Making sure that I am available because it's something that I feel happy working in is definitely a priority. That flexibility, I think, is one of the things that I do prioritize a lot whenever I'm in the work field.
No, and that's good how you mentioned on these three values.
Yes, thank you.
Um, Accountability is something, of course, that like you mentioned on some key points.
Yeah,
It kind of shows in your character.
definitely.
If you have a task to do, you have a job to do, you go ahead and take pride and ownership into that.
Exactly.
Which kind of ties into the self-respect,
Yes,
goes into that. And then most of the values that we, um, I guess, get passed on either from, our parents as we grow up, could be
yes,
grandparents, relatives, our upbringing. And then there's certain values that we kind of
yes,
learn along the way through life,
exactly.
whether it's
Exactly.
work experience, school, or things happen that we gain to know these values. But that's great. And also one more thing on being flexible. Of course, it's
Yes,
great to have that work-life balance. Um, Being able to kind of take care of what you need to do in the workplace, but at the same time, when it's outside of work, kind of have
exactly.
that balance. So
Exactly, definitely.
good, good. Um, One of the things we always ask is with candidates is kind of being in a situation where you kind of had, it could have been a challenging moment, it could have been something that kind of I guess kind of tested you in a sense. Can you think of one moment like that in the workplace?
Yes, definitely. I feel like time and time again, I come to this situation just because it was something that has only happened to me once, due to the fact that I've only taken one leadership role in the past. So there was a time when I was working at PLS cashiers, and if you don't know what PLS is, basically you go there to cash checks, get money orders, pay rent, all of those financial services that you
Okay.
need from day to day. That's what I did there. So in the beginning, I was hired as a customer service representative as well. So I was in front of the window helping customers. However, after the 3 month mark, I ended up speaking with my store manager and I did let her know that I did have higher aspirations. I did want to move up the ladder because any position that I'm in that I love, I always want to see how else I can contribute. So I actually ended up being promoted to a shift supervisor. And what you do there is you're just in charge of other people, making sure that what you did as a customer service representative, they're doing. However, whenever I received my promotion, it upset one of my peers because we had started at the same time, and it was a position that they also
Mm,
wanted. But unfortunately, whenever you have a limited number of people, only so much can be done and so much promotion can be given to certain individuals until a new one comes along. So I think that that position was very hard for me because this was someone that I was working with as equals, as we're CSRs together. We kind of on downtime, we would joke around together. It was a person that I definitely considered a work friend.
mhm.
And whenever I got that promotion, it kind of shifted. It was something where I am not sure if they realized it, but they were undermining my authority. I think that in the beginning of stages, whenever you are getting a promotion, you want to assert yourself so people can rely on you. And it was very hard to do that when there's someone who, even if I'm next to them, they feel that they have to go across the store to get other manager assistance. It was
Mm.
a very difficult time in that transition because if one person even shows the smallest amount of disdain, I think that that can, like a plague, it affects everyone. And
Yes, in
so,
the workplace.
yeah, and so definitely it was something that was very hard. It wasn't impossible. I definitely worked with it, but there was a time where there's certain times, maybe tax season or the summer or holiday season, whenever it gets really full. And at the time when I was doing my transition, we were around that April, May time, whenever tax comes back. And so it was so busy that doing that and not allowing me to assist this person was affecting our customers. It was no longer that they
Mhm.
were just affecting me or my emotions or whatever you may want to call it. You're affecting now the customer directly. And it's something that cannot be allowed, especially when you work with people. And so this was a situation that I spoke with my manager about, but I dealt with on my own. I actually had to pull the CSR to the back room and have a conversation with them. Sometimes people may naively or maybe not intentionally undermine you or disrespect you. So it was something where I had to set my foot down and say, this is what's happening, and it's not about me anymore. It's about what we're doing for people who come here. And so I think that I'm a very huge advocate for communication. If you don't tell anyone something, how will they be able to read your mind to know that it's wrong? So
Communication. Mhm.
yeah, so the communication was definitely something that I used at that moment. It was something that even it was kind of like we can go this for that, and just try to rely on me during this tough time. And then afterwards, if you don't want me to assist you, you can definitely go to someone else. But throughout that experience, because they started relying on me during this heavy period, whenever we had downtime, it was no longer they were going to find other managers. They were actually looking for me. So I think that that was definitely a hard situation. But in hindsight, I definitely think that I handled it the best that I could with the resources that I had.
Right. And like you said, just dealing with something like that in the workplace can affect, like you said, everyone,
Yes, exactly.
not just coworkers, but like you said, the people that go in there and want the services.
Exactly.
Um, I guess, just kind of dealing with that. What would you say kind of made you kind of take that stand to kind of say, okay, you know what, we need to address this issue. It's kind of gone far enough.
Yes.
Um, What kind of made you decide that when you noticed what?
Yeah, so I think that the moment that I noticed it was whenever we were busy. It always happens like that. I was next to them and then they left and they didn't even address the customer. And the customer is looking around trying to find the CSR. And it's just like now I have to step in and let them know, oh, they'll be right back. How can I help you in the meantime? And it's like,
Mhm.
it's not that I'm mad about helping a customer or helping a CSR. It's not about that, but it's the fact that it kind of felt like the customer wasn't even treated like a person because they weren't
Mhm.
even addressed to you. If you go somewhere, you expect them to, if they have to leave for a moment, to let you know. And if that doesn't happen, you think something's wrong. And so I
Mhm.
think that that situation was kind of eye-opening to me, especially because it was in the beginning of my transition. I feel like I kind of thought that every manager went through that, and it was kind of a not as extreme as like hazing, but maybe that's what it took to be a manager, to kind of earn your badge of being a manager. But
Right.
it's no longer a situation where I can just hope that they change. It's something that we do have to address.
True, because it could start affecting businesses where people can,
Exactly.
stop going. Because let's say
Exactly.
one person has um, I guess a bad experience in this
Yes.
location, and then since if
Exactly.
you're the leader or the person in
Yes.
charge, it kind of reflects on you, saying, okay, well,
Exactly.
what's going on? So,
Exactly. Yes.
um, in regards to kind of being a challenge situation, of course, it sounds like it was probably going through, some stress, frustration, dealing with all those emotions because, like you said, especially someone that you kind of built a little bit of trust with, kind of,
Exactly.
felt that I guess coworker mentality of knowing that, hey, if you need me, I got you, I can help you
Yes.
out. But at the same time, when you needed them to kind of do their role, made it
Exactly.
difficult.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
I agree.
if you were to say, if you were to be put in a situation like that, how would you have handled it different now?
I think that the biggest takeaway that I have from that situation is I would have acted sooner. I think that whenever you are dealing with a situation and you kind of let it spread, there's so much tension there that it may sometimes feel like it's impossible to cut
Mhm.
back or to build a relationship again. So I think that maybe if I would have acted sooner, and if that happened to me now, I would definitely kind of mention it in the moment and make someone aware of what they're doing. I think that one thing that I've learned whenever you're dealing with people, it's kind of throwing it back at them, not the action, but oh, why would you do that? Or is there something that I did for you to act this way? It's in a subtle way you're calling out their behavior without embarrassing them or without it being a negative experience. Just why is this happening? Do you have anything to say about that situation? And I, at least for me, I think that a majority of my hardships or issues at work, I can happily say that they've been resolved with communication. However, I think that's why it's important to have an open door policy at work in case communication does not work. And maybe sometimes you might have to bring someone else, but I would hope that it wouldn't have to lead to that. Just mentioning it when it's happening should be enough.
True, and how you hit that point on having that communication.
Yes,
It's something, of course, that especially if you're in a leadership position, that should always kind of be able to be there.
exactly.
And then also how you said to if the issue can't be solved or it's not
Yes,
being addressed properly, if needed, kind of go a different route, whether it's
definitely.
getting somebody else. But for the most part, at least being able to have that dialogue of say, okay,
Exactly.
what's going on, and we both want the same objective, the same goal.
Exactly.
How do we get to that goal?
That
Okay.
is correct. Yes.
Um, and then in regards to kind of being in I guess you could say that leadership role, is that the position you've kind of had before? Sometimes in leadership roles, we might be put in situations where, let's say we don't have a title,
Of
but
course.
we take on responsibilities as
Yeah, of
somebody
course.
with, management or leadership roles. Has there been
Yes.
other instances like that?
So I think that that's a great question, just because I feel like in any position that I've had, I always feel like I'm giving it my 110%, just because honestly, like I mentioned when we first spoke, I never really say yes to a position that I won't be happy with or that I don't
Mhm.
see my growth or happiness in. And so there's many positions where I feel like I may take on additional roles, not many where I can say I've acted as a manager without the title, but I've definitely spoken with previous supervisors and managers about the goals that I have, and they've taught me how to do certain things. So, for example, whenever I was working at Seracom, this was an interpreting agency, and so it was mostly a call center. And at this call center, we're constantly taking calls back to back. But about every week or every 2 weeks, we did have a huddle with our supervisor. It was just a one-on-one, and we were talking
Mhm.
about what we hoped to achieve. And so for me, it was to achieve being a interpreter supervisor, just because I feel very happy with my English. I feel very happy with the communication and what I was offering at that time. And so whenever there was some downtime, especially at night or sometimes when you're working overnight, there were times where sometimes I could, for a couple minutes, maybe 10-15 minutes, I could log out of my computer and look at how paperwork was done or what was quality looking for in calls. It was never that I was taking additional responsibilities. It was mostly that I was making my goals known and someone was helping me. Okay, if you were to take on this position, this is what it would look like. It was more of a guidance type of thing.
Okay, and that's good. Like kind of gaining that little bit of knowledge
Of
from
course,
other management roles,
of course, yeah.
to kind of help you out, which is great. It shows that, being ambitious at the same time, kind of looking a little bit into the future in a
Of
sense.
course, yes.
Okay. Um, and then kind of being in that shows, maturity, shows that you're willing to kind of contribute and also be able to be, I guess you could say trainable, coachable,
Oh, yes.
and have that mentality for growth. So
Yeah,
that's good. Good to hear.
definitely.
Um, Kind of going into that of seeing a little bit into the
Yes.
future. Can
Yes.
you elaborate a little bit more on one of the goals that you kind of set for yourself and what you're doing to achieve it?
Yeah, and in regards to this, would you like to talk? Because I know that in the application it was talking about personal or professional. Is there any of those that you would like for me to elaborate on? The
Either
professional.
or, one that you can probably say that it could be meaningful, that you feel that this is something that you want to achieve, you want to obtain.
Oh, of course. Okay, so for example, for me, I think that um, a professional goal for me, I think either short term is just developing my skills in whatever job that I'm in. Ideally, as a customer service, I've learned a lot, but with customer service, there are sometimes where you go into the niche category. It's no longer I'm a cashier and I can be a cashier anywhere else. It's no,
Mhm.
it's just tailoring the needs of the company and the customer. So for me, a short-term goal and definitely can translate into long term is learning and honing my skills and my knowledge. I think that whenever you're a customer service representative, you may think, okay, whenever training is happening, you may be asked this, you may be told this, but whenever you're there, it's actually very different. Many people may hit you with questions you never even thought to ask. So that's why having knowledge of the company and the way that they do work or whatever that may look like is definitely important to have, even if I'm not working directly at working at installing doors or anything by those means, but just at least knowing a little of the process or thinking of maybe a customer would ask me this because I would ask that. So it's just definitely making sure that I'm honing my skills and learning as much as I can for as long as I can.
And that's good, like you said, just kind of being able to kind of do things to kind of obtain that goal, to kind of
Exactly.
do the extras. And sometimes
Yes.
um, we can kind of get complacent or kind of get comfortable when we
Exactly.
kind of want
Yes.
to think. So when you kind of take that extra initiative or that extra step,
Yes.
that's kind of where you feel there's growth. It's kind of like that saying when you kind of get out of that comfort zone.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like everyone's comfortable in their comfort zone, and there's nothing wrong with being there, but there's truly no way that you will know your potential until you come out of it. And I
Mhm.
definitely agree with that.
Okay, no, and that's good. Like you said, something you kind of look forward to obtaining a goal in the future. Um, can you now kind of explain to me a little bit about a goal that you set for yourself and that you attained and you achieved?
Yeah, so I think that a goal for myself that I've set for myself and that I've achieved, it doesn't necessarily focus with work because I feel like there's many things that I've wanted to do and I've done, but I think in personal life it may be a little harder to do so, or it may take longer. So for me, a personal goal that I had was I wanted to write a short script. And
Okay.
so I did mention that in my free time I am a writer and I like watching movies and doing
Mhm.
movies. And so one of the biggest goals that I had was to write my own movie. And it didn't have to be really long, but it was about 10 to 20 pages. And it took me about 6 months to do it. Obviously, with some guidance of some teachers that I definitely still have contact with till this day. But just knowing that I was capable of creating something that hasn't existed before, and that now I can see it, I can read it, I can share it with my family and friends. I think that that was so satisfactory, and so it felt like such a success because whenever we go through life, we we know we would be capable of doing certain things, but there's things we like egotistically maybe feel like we could do that we actually will never attempt. And so I
Mhm.
think that I kind of felt like that whenever I was writing this short film. I felt like, yeah, I could definitely do that, but until I did it, I didn't realize what it took. It took me 6 months just to write 20 pages.
Wow,
So
took a
yeah,
while.
yeah. So it's a lot of planning, it's a lot of thinking, it's a lot of research, whatever the topic may be. And so succeeding in that goal that I had set for myself truly showed me that although it may sound cliche, there's nothing that I can think of that I cannot do. All I have to do is start. And so that's definitely what this taught me and why I feel so proud of saying it, even though it may not directly impact my position as a CSR. I definitely do feel proud of succeeding in that.
Oh, and that's good able to obtain these goals because it shows, like I said, a couple things from your character
Yes,
of you're willing to start something and then kind of go through the process. Whether
exactly.
it's not easy, it could be challenging, it could kind of, like you said, something that you haven't done before. But whether if I guess you don't see any, I guess immediate results, it
Yes,
took, time and dedication to
I
kind of
agree.
finish that.
Yes,
So. And that's great because you said that's something that you kind of, it seems like since you were younger, you kind of had kind of like that
yes,
passion for it.
yes,
So it's always great. And I remember in the phone interview, we were talking about that, like kind of saying something you liked, writing from
yes,
before, and you just kind of kept with it. So that's great.
yes,
Um, and then in regards to dealing with, these goals and obtaining them,
yes.
um, going through the challenges, what would you say would probably be um, a way you kind of deal with challenges or kind of obstacles? Do you kind of have a certain way or do you kind of treat them different?
I think that not every situation is the same. Not every day is the same, even though you may have the same routine. So that's kind of the way that I treat every situation. I treat them as they come, but I think that one thing that I can definitely say that I always have whenever I have certain situations that may not be so positive is and I know I need to work on this. It's kind of like that overthinking.
Mhm.
Whenever I come across any issue, there's a time where even if you would want it to be perfect, you just did the most you could, and you have to kind of let that baby idea or project go and move on to the next one. And I'm the kind of person that although I am very focused and centered on what I'm currently working on, I will I will have those moments late at night when I'm just like, oh, why did I write that? Or why did I say that? Or just thinking about a negative situation and trying to plan for it in the future. And then when that future gets here, it's kind of like, what was I even doing? Because now I don't
Mhm.
it's not how I pictured it going. So I definitely think that I do take it as they come, but I do tend to have that overthinkingness, trying to hit that perfection, but it's just not possible to be perfect at everything. So it's just kind of taking the issues or the possibilities as they come.
And one of the things that you, as you were telling me, I
Yes,
started thinking sometimes we become our own worst self-critic. We
yes, yes,
always think that, I did this wrong, this, you start kind of questioning it. But for the most part, as you kind of grow, you
yes,
tend to kind of learn, or trust the process, just kind of be able to give yourself, some appreciation, kind of that
yeah,
you're
of
going through
course.
it and able to completing something just in itself is an accomplishment. So that's great.
Yeah,
And then again, the overthinking, I guess it just kind of comes natural. Sometimes
yeah,
we tend to do it, but
yeah.
um, has there been a situation, I guess, where in the workplace, kind of overthinking kind of puts you in a certain situation?
Um, I think if I can think about any overthinking in a position, I think I could go back to remedy. I think that I've realized how much of a heavy overthinker I am because I was working in healthcare, and not necessarily that other jobs don't make me think about or focus on the small details. That's not necessarily it. But
Mhm.
whenever I am dealing with someone else's life, or it doesn't even have to be that serious, but to me it was a lot of overthinking whenever you have production goals to meet is detrimental, because if you don't reach your production needs, there's people that their charts aren't getting looked at, or their medication isn't getting verified. So whatever that may look like, there were times where I did have to speak with my superiors, and they did have to say that maybe sometimes we do the best we can, and we know that the information we're given and the training that we are given is right, and we just need to follow that training. But there's times whenever you may have too many medications, and now you're thinking, wait,
Mhm.
did I add that one? And now I want to go back to that chart, but I already signed it, so now I have to create another encounter. And so I think that that's definitely something that whenever you have production to meet, whenever there are people depending on the work that you do, even if they don't realize it, overthinking can put you in a bit of a bind.
Okay. And like you said, just kind of you learn to kind of as you grow, um, learn how to deal with that in a sense
Yes,
moving
yes,
forward. Okay. Um, One of the things is when we were talking about the position, about dealing with, scheduling appointments,
of
dealing with
course.
that type. I believe is that Assyrian that you were
Yes,
doing
that
that.
is correct. Yes, that is correct.
Um, and then in regards to that, did you have metrics or quotas or certain numbers that you kind of have to meet or expectations? Can you tell me a little about that?
Yes, so for Shurion, and I think pretty much for almost all my jobs, there are metrics I have to meet, but at Shurion, I
Mhm.
was scheduling appointments. I don't necessarily remember the metrics if you would like to know them, just because it's been about 3 years, but it was definitely something that as soon as you get a call, you're providing a service. And if that service can't be fixed within the call, you do have to schedule someone to go out. I think that whenever you're working, at least in a call center, it's very fast paced. You're taking
Mhm.
about 7 to 8 calls every hour. And so that means
Wow.
that you're taking maybe 7 to 12 minutes within a call. It may be more or less, give or take, depending on every situation. It's always very different, but there are metrics that you need to meet. And unless the circumstance was insurmountable, something really happened to put you over, it's something that you do have to answer for, and you do have to own and to say, yes, this is why I did it, or this is why I didn't do it, and this is why I met the metric, or this is why I didn't meet the metric.
Okay, and that's something that, like you said, just kind of working in that call center environment.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
you always kind of have to be, kind of expression quick on your feet, able to kind of
Exactly.
go because every call is going to be different, and then there's
Exactly.
ways to kind of go around it. But okay. And then when you guys were setting up the appointments, was it something that they were, I guess you would say, cold calls that you guys were making, or some that were inbound?
Yeah, so not necessarily making cold calls, at least not in the previous positions that I've had. There are certain calls like a PLS. I would make calls just to remind people payments are coming up, or maybe something happened with their account and they just need to come down so we can talk about it. But at Ashurian, it wasn't cold calling. It was mostly like a call will come in, and once that call is clicked over, another one comes in. And so
Oh
it's
wow.
yeah, it's so fast paced that you're lucky if you even get to breathe before the next person is waiting for you on the other line.
The
Um,
calls are already in I guess
in a
in
queue.
queue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're in a queue. That is correct. Yes.
Okay. I guess just speaking on that, like how you said, sometimes you don't have enough time to kind of transition for the next call. Um, what would you say would be a way that you kind of kept yourself organized in that environment?
Yes, so I think for me, the way that I keep myself organized, at least so I didn't go insane, was
Mhm.
I learned to become a note taker. Everything that I may think about, any questions that I may have, anything that maybe a customer asked that I didn't know, I would write it down so I could speak with my supervisor about it and get an answer. It's impossible to know everything that I will possibly ask you, right? But the thing is that you do have your sources that you can refer to. And if I ask you something that you don't know today and you receive the answer, if someone else asks you this next week, now you have that answer. So
Okay.
I learned to kind of quickly write things on a notebook and just kind of put it to the side. There's just so much that you can do to keep yourself organized that you just write it down and flip the page, worry about it later. And that's kind of what it was like, just because it was such a fast-paced environment.
No, and that's good that you said in regards to there's really, not much time to kind of deal with it at that moment. So you kind of
Exactly.
have to keep moving forward until
Exactly.
um, you can look back at that situation.
Yes.
And that's great. And then in regards to not just professional, but I guess on a personal level
Yeah.
or even some professional, do you use um, apps,
Yeah.
calendars, technology, anything to kind of help you to stay organized?
Yeah, so I feel like whenever I was growing up, I didn't see a lot of technology, but now that I'm an adult, it's everywhere. And
Mm,
so kind of the way that you can think about me and the kind of person that I am, if I can do it on a notebook, I'm doing it on my computer. I feel like I'm so tech savvy that everything is almost done on my computer, my phone, an iPad even. But for that, I rely heavily on my notes app. I rely heavily on office products such as Word, Outlook, even Excel is very important and can come handy whenever you're working on finances or just meeting certain things or setting goals for yourself. I think that I rely very, very, very heavily on office products and on my notes and calendar apps, just because I want to make sure that there's nothing I'm missing. I want to know that if I look at my calendar, everything is scheduled. And if I were to set up another appointment, it will immediately go in there. And so that's the way that I can keep myself organized. I can keep myself sane. I can keep myself on track in what it is that I do and what it is that I want to do.
no, that's good. And I guess as technology keeps advancing, to kind of keep up with the times, most of the jobs now are using some sort of could be a CRM,
Yeah,
or even I guess in call centers, workplaces, they deal with VoIPs, with phones
yeah,
that are they're all online. So you
exactly.
kind of have to learn how to maneuver through
Yes,
some of these CRMs. Most of them are user friendly. Some
yes,
can be a little bit more difficult than others, but for the most part, kind of having that adaptability, being able
yes,
to adapt to different types of systems.
yes,
Um, and then once you kind of start tying into that, like you're saying, into the personal life, whether it's finances, keeping up to date on your calendars, that's great. It shows that you kind of have that aptitude of willing to adapt with the times.
oh, yes. Thank you.
Great. Another thing would be that we kind of look for it is, I've been asking situational questions in regards to, obstacles, challenges. Um, we want to find out, when people have that tenacity, when, work is work. At the end of the day, it's
Yes,
something that it's inevitable. We're going to have to work, different types of jobs, but how we deal with it.
yes.
Um, what would you say would be something that, like, when you go through a situation, where on a personal level,
Yes.
and then let's say work is going great, but on a personal level, things aren't going as how we plan it.
Yes.
How do you kind of differentiate that from the workplace so it doesn't affect it?
Yeah, so I think that's something that I used to struggle with whenever I was first starting off, especially whenever you're dealing with other people. People may intentionally or unintentionally hurt your feelings or say something that you kind of think about at the end of the day. But I think that the difference between my personal life and my professional life is learning to not take things personal. And instead of thinking about people are attacking me or anything that it is that relates to me as a person, they're attacking whatever is the object of what it is that I'm doing.
Mhm.
Maybe they wish they were being served fast enough and it's only one of me. They're not attacking me, they're just attacking, I guess, the system, if you will. I think that it's something that I struggled with because I feel like if people don't like me, at least in the past, I would just take it so personal and think like this person's approval means so much to me. And so
Mhm.
it's just kind of like there's not much that I could do back then. Just having a support system showed me that even if someone attacks me directly or says something that may not be as pleasant, at the end of the day, I can go to my trusted group of friends and my siblings, and I can talk about my situation, and we can deal with it together. Something that my sister has told me, it's just kind of like whenever work is over, these people are not coming home with me. As soon as
Mhm.
I leave, I get to choose how the rest of my day goes. And so it's no longer these people have an effect on me. It's just at the end of the day, I will not even remember this. So just having a support system, people who can also help see things in a very objective way is very important because I feel like whenever we are in a situation, we may at times become emotionally invested or just invested in general. And to have someone from like a third perspective is very helpful whenever you're kind of thinking of past situations or something that happened throughout the day.
No, and it's a good point you brought about in regards to having that, support group, able to talk
Yes.
about it. Because as much as we always try to have, like earlier, we talked about the work-life balance. Kind of in the perfect world is you go to work, you as soon as you get to work, you leave personal stuff at the door, and then
Yes.
when you leave work, you go home, you leave the work stuff at the door.
Yeah.
But we come so ingrained or attached to or what we do
Yeah.
in the workplace. So it's a little bit it's easier said than done, in other words.
Yes. That's
But I think as you grow, you mature, you start to realize what's important and what's not.
definitely.
As you were kind of explaining to me, like how you said now that you kind of realize that, I believe you said your sister was the one that told you,
Yes.
those people they don't go home with you. Just you
Exactly.
kind of leave it in the workplace.
Yes.
It reminded me of something of you can't control, I guess, others. You just kind
Exactly.
of control what's in our control is how we react.
Yes.
So if it's something that you're going to kind of hold on to and just kind of affect whether it's mood or other things,
Yeah.
you kind of have to learn to let things go. And for the most part in the workplaces, there's, I guess you can say for the most part, you can have a great work environment,
Yeah.
but there's going to be instances and you just kind of have to learn to just, I'm here to do my job, to the best of my ability. And like you said, work stuff is work stuff, personal stuff is personal stuff. But
Exactly. Yes.
it's good. Um, Able to deal with those emotions, I guess, is something that kind of shows the tenacity as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Um, Another thing is I know we talked a little bit about technology
Yes.
or schooling.
Yeah.
How would you say overall as a student you would to describe yourself?
Yeah, so I feel like and you can ask my sister, she'll answer,
Mhm.
but um I feel like I'm a student in life. I hate the thought of one day waking up and not learning anything new. I always want to develop and learn, and it is very important as humans to grow. That's how evolution happens. That's why we're here, because hunters and gatherers kind of learned and used tools, right? And so that's the
Mhm.
way that I think about it. Even if we are no longer using knives to kill our food, it's kind of like we're using tools such as technology, such as other people, to further learn and grow as people and as humans. At the end of the day, I feel very passionate about this topic because I just, it's something that I tell my siblings just because I'm the oldest of four. I want them to know that it's okay to ask questions all the time and
Mhm.
to make sure that you learn something and that the people that come into your life can show or teach you something the same way that you can show or teach them. I think that's why I'm just so happy at school. Obviously, it's a subject that I really enjoy, but even in the creative, you can learn critical thinking, and creativity is a huge part of what we do on our day to day. There's nothing that we do that you don't see creativity in. And so I
Mhm.
think that having that, the guidance and the resources to learn those skills is very important. And so I think that as a student, I am a person who questions things a lot, someone who is very opinionated, and someone who hopes and expects other people to reciprocate that back. Just because whenever I go into any interaction, even if it's a minute long, even if we just met, I feel like I will learn something from you by the end of the conversation, and likewise.
Okay, kind of having that the mentality of always kind of learning something new, but at the same time, whether it's a skill set, could be the experience, it could be just something minor, can be something
Exactly.
that can be taught. No,
Yes.
that's good. Because as we kind of go through, sometimes we go through whether it could be a new job or you're trying out a new hobby or something.
Yeah.
Um, we might have to learn a new skill set.
Yes.
So if we didn't have the experience, we can use other resources to kind of obtain that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Um, and that's good. Like you said, education is key. Like you said, being a student of life is something that doesn't matter your age. You can be young, you can be old, you can be in
Yeah.
between. You can always learn. And it's
Yeah.
a continuous learning.
Yeah, and definitely just having an open mind to anything and everything. I think that's very important.
Okay, okay. Um, to kind of just finish off, the interviews. One of the things we always look for is dealing with the fast-paced
Yes.
environment. Like you mentioned earlier, from having the experience of dealing with the back-to-back calls,
Yep.
of dealing with different types of when you have people on the phone from different types of backgrounds. Some people can be fast talkers, some people can be slow talkers, some people won't be able to hear. So dealing with all those types of situations.
Yes.
Uh, for this in particular role, what would you say would be a reason that kind of makes you probably the best candidate for this role?
Yes, I think that for me, what I believe makes me the best candidate for this role, I think is my flexibility and my open-mindedness. I think that every skill and everything that I will possibly need to succeed in this job will be taught to me.
Mhm.
But there's a thing about working with people that you truly cannot teach. It's something that you learn as you go, and people will end up showing you who they are, and how you react to it is on you. I think that because I am a person that can go to others and strike up a conversation, even if we may have nothing alike, I think that that's great because it builds relationships, it builds personal connection. In the same way that whenever I was working at PLS, we got a lot of business from mouth to mouth and people talking about us. It's the same way that I feel about this position. And if hired, if being considered the best candidate, I think it's because I will be able to anyone who calls, make them feel welcomed and make them feel like they left without having any questions or concerns. That's why I'm there at the end of the day, and that's what I am most excited for, and that's why I think I'm the best candidate.
Great, great. Thank you for that. Like I said, just kind of shows the passion that you have for helping people and making them feel
Yes,
that they're create solutions to their issues in a sense.
exactly. Yes.
Okay. Um, for the most part, do want to say, thank you, Mark, for
Yes.
sharing a lot of the information. Um, wanted to kind of get to know you a little bit better in regards to the situationals, which you answered them. So again, thank you for that.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so the next step, just to kind of give you an idea
Yeah,
how the process would go, is we're gonna go ahead and send the information out to the location manager. They're gonna go ahead and try to make a decision. I want to say they want to do it, of course, by this week.
of course.
Um, I'm gonna go ahead and turn the information in probably between today, tomorrow, no later than Wednesday.
Yes.
Um, and then from there, so the process is to get you in a face-to-face. This would be at the location with
Yes.
the location manager. Um, I don't know the exact date and time yet.
Yes.
But what I can go ahead and do is just kind of, keep you updated. I can either do it whether a phone call, text message, or email, whatever is easiest for you, and just kind of give you an update and say, "Okay, I spoke to the location manager. They decided that they want to see you face to face on this date and this time, if it works with you." Um, with that being said, what does your availability look like? Would you say you would prefer earlier in the day, midday, afternoon? What does your schedule look like?
Yeah, so my schedule is pretty much open. I would definitely prefer the morning. However, I am not opposed to afternoon or late afternoon. I definitely am available if definitely considered, I am available.
Okay, great, great. And then just kind of checking right now in regards to the location. The location itself is going to be yeah, of course in the Sugar Land area. Not sure if you're familiar with that. How far is that from you?
Oh yeah, with traffic, it's about maybe a 35 minute drive.
Okay. Um, and then just kind of seeing if it would be, I guess, a earlier uh,
Yeah.
in-person interview.
Oh, okay.
Um, I don't know how much because I know traffic can be a little bit hectic as well. Just to kind of give you enough time, I'll give you at least, of course, within 24-hour notice. So then
Oh,
that way you can,
definitely.
plan ahead of time. And then let's see on my end. For the most part, I have no further questions. Would you happen to have any questions or maybe, something that just since the first interview and now something that's come up?
Yeah, so I think I don't have many